I'm Dr. John Gartner.
And I'm Dr. Harry Segal.
And welcome to another session of Shrinking Trump.
You've come into our office. You've laid down on the analytic couch. We're sitting behind you. John and I are both clinical psychologists. We're observers of politics, but more importantly, we think about psychological functioning. And we've been concerned about Donald Trump's cognitive decline, which I think has been going on for quite some time now. We see as early stages dementia, but perhaps as, or more importantly, his severe personality disorder, malignant narcissism, which has resulted in Trump's lack of empathy, his criminal behavior, his increasingly compulsive lying, and an odd ease with lying that's happening with him. And his march to amassing as much power as he can, because he doesn't care about anyone else, and he doesn't have a moral center, which is part of the diagnosis that John and I have been talking about for 59 episodes. This is our 60th, and we're very happy that you're here. Right, John?
Yes. And we're going to be talking about his latest signs of dementia of the week, because he can't go a week without being demented later in the program. But we want to open with the big story, of course, which is Epstein. You know, last week we were expressing hope that now that the MAGA base is really clamoring to have this report exposed, and Mikey Johnson was calling for it to be released, that maybe this might be the thing that turned the tide. But I was more cynical, and I felt like they would find a way to bury this. Now, I don't know what's going to happen in the end. This is really something we'll be talking about, and I guess prognosticating about. But we certainly are seeing a massive cover-up taking place in plain sight. And that's, I think, the thing to worry about. And actually, the cover-up is taking on all kinds of different levels. And so we're going to have a number of different angles to this cover-up that we're going to be covering in the show today. The first is, Trump has a way of just saying, don't look up. Don't look. If you remember that movie, we had this with an asteroid was coming to destroy the Earth, and the right-wing people were saying, well, then don't look up. Just don't look up.
Solve it.
And so he puts out this Truth Social post where he not only is telling people not to look up, but, and this is the other part of the malignant narcissist, he's saying, if you do, you'll be expelled from the movement. If you do, we're taking names. We'll know who you are, and we will punish and expel you. I mean, this is a tweet, by the way, that I want to show you all to his supporters. Let's see that. I'm running out of patience. What used to be my loyal supporters being fooled by the liberals and their obvious hoax. It's the only thing they're capable of. Those who continue with this bullshit will be, quote, identified, and a serious price will be paid. You've been warned.
Now listen, folks, I teased John last week saying that he doesn't mimic Trump. He gives voice to Trump's inner voice,
I channel him.
You channel him. But I really want to say something seriously here. Yeah. That's one of the sickest things we've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
This is an explicit expression of rage at being betrayed by people who are asking for what they've been told they would get for years if Trump was reelected. I mean, they're literally clamoring for what they asked for. And he is calling them hits. He's suggesting he'll reject them.
Right.
It's very disturbed behavior. It is classic malignant narcissism, isn't it?
Really? Yes. And that's why I wanted to start with that before we get into all the other shenanigans and the different characters and the different roles they're playing. That's the raw Trump. Right. That's the raw sort of Rorschach of his malignant narcissism, right? That just splayed out there on the page.
It's an unmediated expression. It's pure, it's clear as day.
Yeah, it's pure id. So one way that they're covering things up is we hear that they have 1,000 FBI agents working around the clock to go through the Epstein files to flag any mentions of Trump. Are we going to, obviously, if they've got that much manpower dedicated to finding all the Trump references, there've got to be some. Does that mean we're ever going to see them? Or is it the opposite? Are they combing the records to delete the references to Trump in order to participate in a cover-up? That's what Representative Jamie Raskin believes is going on.
You remember they had actually conscripted 1,000 FBI agents to be working around the clock 24 hours, going through more than 100,000 of these Epstein documents in the files, and apparently told them to flag any mentions or appearances or pictures of Donald Trump. Anything that appears there of Donald Trump, they're supposed to flag it. Well, what were they supposed to do after they flag it? And we also heard separately, this was a couple weeks ago, that the FBI Director Kash Patel was using lie detector tests against the FBI agents. And I wonder whether these two things are related to each other. In other words, somebody finds something relating to Donald Trump, they turn it over. Are they then asked, are you loyal to Donald Trump? Will you do what we ask you to do? Are you going to turn this over to anybody else? And, this might be one of the most massive cover-ups in the history of the United States unfolding before our very eyes.
I love that he puts it that way. This may be one of the most massive cover-ups in the history of the United States taking place right before our eyes.
Okay, but here's I agree it's a possibility, but there's two things we have to remember. One is the Wall Street Journal has someone on the inside who's feeding them information about these files.
Yes.
So even if they are being destroyed, there's a pipeline, right? And also you have all these FBI agents, the rules about evidence that FBI people have to go through. Everything has to be signed. Everything has to be observed. So it could happen. And Raskin is right to raise it. But I think the bureaucracy is still clumsy enough that it can't simply be scrubbed. In fact, what we're learning is his name comes up all over the place.
Well, he's also implying with these lie detector tests, right, that there's going to be an elite crew of Trump loyalists. There's not just any FBI agents that get to go through the files. It's the ones who would, break the law for Donald Trump.
No. It's all turning. It's all turning in that direction for sure.
So especially with Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, playing games, I feel we will never see that report, or if we do, it'll have so many, blackouts, redactions. Thank you. That was the word I was looking for. As we saw with the Mueller report, just every time the word Trump is there, they'll just redact it. But anyway, that's not the only front on which the cover-up is going on. Remember, last week we were saying, well, lo and behold, little Mikey Johnson is getting up on his little hind legs and standing up to Donald Trump and saying we need to release the Epstein report. But as you and I know, he's a little pisher with no spine and no conscience, and he was going to cave, right? That's what we predicted. Well, lo and behold, he's gone from we must release the Epstein report to this.
What I would say about the Epstein files, there is no daylight between the House Republicans, the House, and the president on maximum transparency. He has said that he wants all the credible files related to Epstein to be released. He's asked the Attorney General to request the grand jury files of the court. All of that is in process right now. My belief is we need the administration to have the space to do what it is doing. And if further congressional action is necessary or appropriate, then we'll look at that. But I don't think we're at that point right now because we agree with the president.
So no vote on this resolution.
No.
Can I just give the guy a little space? Just give him some. I mean, can you just give him a little space? I mean, for God's sake, back up a little bit, okay? I mean, you're crowding him. Give him a chance to do his job.
The fact is, Trump did not say he would release all the files. As little Mikey just said, he's grudgingly allowing the testimony, the grand jury testimony, to be released to the Department of Justice. By the way, the House voted to subpoena not only Ghislaine Maxwell, but also all the files.
Mm-hmm.
That's a Republican committee that did that.
Yeah, that is interesting, isn't it?
So they overrode Johnson just before he shut down Congress for the vacation.
Well, we're getting to that, right? Because he had a counter move for that. So that's the piece after the one I'm about to show you. But before we get to that one, let's just look at another place where he's trying to justify why he's reversed his position and he's going to back off.
No, but I, as you all know, I speak to the president multiple times a day on a typical day, often, always. And what I know about the president's heart on this is that he agrees with everything I've said here today. He wants maximum transparency, but he's also very insistent that we do not subject people who have already been victims of unspeakable crimes to further public scrutiny. And it would be a very dangerous thing to put those people's names out or to do a release of information in a way that is haphazard where they could be easily unmasked. And so you have to be very careful about how you do that. I think we have a moral responsibility to do that. We have a moral responsibility to expose the evil of Epstein, and everybody was involved in that. Absolutely. And we're resolved to do it. But we also have an equal moral responsibility to protect the innocent. And that is a fine needle to thread. And we could all give ourselves easy political cover and come out and do something in a haphazard fashion, but I would not be able to sleep at night because I know our legal responsibility. I understand what the legal standard is, but more than that, the moral standard, okay? So we're going to do this, and we're going to do it expeditiously. We're going to do it the right way. What is popular isn't always right, and what is right isn't always popular. I had an 8th grade teacher tell me that one time. I carried it with me my whole life. We're going to do the right thing here. And the American people at the end will see that we did that in the right way and on the right timetable.
One reason we hate unctuous little Mikey Johnson is he's so good at presenting the most blatantly immoral behavior in the most reasonable and high-minded sounding voice. You know, I mean, listen, he and Donald Trump, he talks to him every day and often, and he knows Donald Trump's hard on this. And of course, he wants transparency, but you know, Harry, he's concerned for the victims. That's his. He's got a heart for the victim. He's so concerned that the release of the report might re-traumatize or expose some of the victims that he wants to be very, very careful not to hurt anybody.
Yeah, we got to do it right and carefully. And he knows the president's hard on this. That's how I heard it.
Did you say hard or hard on?
Didn't sound like hard on. I know the president's hard on.
It sounded like that to me, and I wondered which of us is making the Freudian slip.
Yeah, you know, it's really despicable, disgusting.
It's really despicable. It's bullshit, and it's just ridiculous.
And he always sounds like a pastor.
Mm-hmm,
he just always does, and sort of a pastor from hell. But there he is. And also
he is a pastor from hell.
He is.
I believe that.
He is. And he's a very effective speaker. I mean,
he is very effective. And now to get to your point, because the Republicans rebelled and subpoenaed this material, what did little Mikey Johnson do to help aid Trump, who he speaks to and services every day? He'll shut down Congress. Johnson cuts short House session to avoid Epstein vote. Speaker Mike Johnson said he would send lawmakers home early for the summer to deny Democrats the chance to force votes on the Jeffrey Epstein files. Epstein case. Speaker Mike Johnson said he would shut the House down early for the summer to head off Democrats' calls for the votes for greater transparency into the investigation of Jeffrey Epstein, the sex offender and former friend of President Trump. Mr. Johnson said the House would adjourn Wednesday until September, avoiding a politically perilous vote on an issue that has fractured Mr. Trump's base. So we're shutting down Congress just to suppress this information.
Even though that committee did vote to subpoena those files. It's fascinating, right? They got it in just under the wire.
Right. You know, Harry, I don't know if people remember, so we're gonna quote ourselves. We're gonna play a little tape from last week. But last week we predicted that Mikey Johnson would fold because we had obtained exclusive access to a phone call between Pam Bondi and little Mikey Johnson, and now it's more relevant than ever. So we really feel a need to bring it back to people's attention.
Mike Johnson, self-righteous Speaker of the House.
Hi, Mike. Pam Bondi, infatuated Attorney General of the United States. The president was wondering why you're calling for me to release the Epstein tape.
No offense intended, but the base is riled up about this. And when the base is riled up, I can't whip my votes. And if I can't whip my votes...
That must be frustrating for you.
You have no idea.
Actually, I do, like when the First Lady comes to town. But Mike, even though you can't get them off, you're going to have to. The president wants to blame this on the Democrats.
But he can't. It's not just members of Congress calling for those files. It's the FBI's Dan Bon Jovi. He sounds mad enough to spank you silly.
I'm not worried about him, Mike. I'm worried about you.
Why?
Remember Covenant Eyes, that app you and your son installed on your phones so each of you knows when the other is viewing pornography?
Why?
Because we hacked your phone, Mike. And I'd hate your view history to go public.
Jiminy.
Vacation Bible School girls, Who's Your Pastor, and Wednesday night prayer gangbang. Mike, I've never seen holier porn, if you know what I mean.
I'll deny it.
That won't do. We turned the phone camera on you, and you should see the look on your face when the Bible study scene goes wild.
Enough. I'll get back in line.
I thought so. Take care, Mike, and I'd get a burner if I were you. Your son has one.
So we wanted to give you the story behind the story.
We were prescient.
Yes, exactly. So there little Mikey goes. Well, you know, that's not all. It gets worse. So now they have also, the committee that you were describing, I forget which committee it was, has also subpoenaed Ghislaine Maxwell. They want to ask her what she knows, which is a hell of a lot, about Donald Trump's involvement with Epstein. But something extraordinary is happening. Okay. They're sending, before she can appear before the congressional committee, they're sending Todd Blanche. If you remember, he was Trump's personal lawyer when he was convicted of 34 felonies. Now the assistant attorney general. They're sending a political appointee, a top political appointee, to meet with her in prison before she can testify to Congress. So it's a blatant act of witness tampering. We can only imagine that he is going to both threaten her if she dares to expose Trump, and perhaps bribe her with some kind of reduced sentence if she agrees to keep quiet. Now, we don't know this for a fact, but this has never happened before, right?
Never.
That before someone goes to Congress, the attorney general tries to get their testimony straight before they have a chance to testify. So let's look at a couple of different pieces about this witness tampering. One is one of the congressmen who's on the committee that has subpoenaed her. And here's what he has to say about it.
There's an effort to subpoena her. I don't know that it's happened yet. Has it happened yet?
We have voted to subpoena her. We expect that subpoena to happen in the next few days.
In the next few days. It hasn't happened yet. Is there anything you think could stop Republicans on the committee from issuing that subpoena?
I think they're going to issue the subpoena.
So this subpoena has been issued. I guess she could decline to appear, even though she's been subpoenaed. What do you think is happening, though? Let's just go back to this meeting that she could be having. It's your job to kind of think about the worst. You're the ranking member on the Oversight Committee. You could be the chairman of the Oversight Committee if Democrats win back. What do you worry most about could happen there, given that this is going on at the same time? She's going to get a subpoena in the next few days to appear. So what's his lawyer asking her?
I think we have to expect the worst. I mean, Donald Trump is only in it to save himself. So we have to expect that him through the DOJ will try to cut some kind of deal with her so that essentially her testimony to the Oversight Committee will essentially be a creation of what Donald Trump wants her to say. And that is obviously dangerous for us as a committee, but we have to expect that that's what she's going to do. She wants nothing more than to reduce her sentence or be free. Her family wants her to get a pardon. And so there could be an intense amount of coordination, illegal coordination on behalf of the Trump DOJ and the president himself to insert himself so that basically she says then matches what he wants her to say. But we should be very clear that only can we corroborate that information if it actually matches the release and what's actually in the actual files right now. So that part is critical and very important to the committee.
So think about this. When we think of witness tampering, right, we think of criminals, right, threatening witnesses not to expose them. We don't think about the Justice Department threatening them not to expose criminals.
You know, one thing that an attorney I know told me was that her attorney will be present during that interview. It's not like her alone in a cell, you know, with Todd Blanche. Now, that attorney will no doubt be advocating on her interests, and maybe it's her interest to then collude. Right? Exactly. I do want to note that it's not like she's just going to be intimidated all by herself. But
as you said, it is in her interest to collude. Yeah, they're going to make her an offer she can't refuse.
They will, and it's happening in front of everyone.
And it's happening in plain sight. You have a congressman right there on TV going, well, of course he's going down there to tamper with the witness. And I wanted to show another piece of film. I know, Harry, that your girlfriend is a lawyer, and when she heard about this, she was so shocked and incensed. In other words, people are constantly accusing us in the comments, like, "Hey guys, you're not lawyers, shut up." Okay, but she is a real lawyer, and she is saying this is insane. This is blatant, crazy corruption in plain sight that we've never seen anything like this before. Well, actually, we have not ever seen anything like this before.
No. Commentators this morning are all over this on television, saying this is beyond unprecedented. It never happens.
Right. And one of those was Lisa Rubin, who's a legal correspondent. I wanted you to hear what she had to say about it.
How unusual is it, Lisa, for the Deputy Attorney General of the United States of America to be taking a trip to a prison in Florida to talk to a witness of a crime alleged to have committed several years in the past?
It's beyond unusual. Todd Blanche will tell you as much. He said no administration has ever done anything like this, and he's choosing his words carefully, Mike. He's not saying no career prosecutor has ever talked to somebody who's already incarcerated. No career prosecutor has ever offered to talk with somebody who's under investigation or prosecution. He's saying no administration has ever done this. What he's referring to there is the political leadership of the Department of Justice. The idea that the Deputy Attorney General is going to walk into Federal Correctional Institution, Tallahassee, where Ghislaine Maxwell is now serving her sentence, and take a private meeting with her, that takes my breath away in terms of its impropriety and susceptibility to corruption.
Why? Why does it take your breath away?
Well, because first of all, the career prosecutors at the Department of Justice are the ones who dealt with this case. More importantly, it takes my breath away because on July 14th, John Sauer, another former personal criminal defense attorney of Donald Trump, submitted a brief to the Supreme Court in which they said this conviction should stand. And yet now, less than 2 weeks later, Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General, wants to talk to Ghislaine Maxwell about what more information she can provide. Wouldn't the time have been much sooner to have done this? This is an administration that itself began the investigation and prosecution of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. And yet, now, 6 years later, they want to talk to Ghislaine Maxwell about what additional information she could provide. This just reeks of something untoward, particularly given that Ghislaine Maxwell will perhaps do anything, say anything to reduce her prison sentence or to get a pardon or a commutation.
Or exonerate someone powerful who might be implicated in all of this, perhaps someone in the White House.
Yeah, there it is. It's as clear as day.
Clear as day. Clear as day. So, just when we talk about the erosion of the rule of law, this is just one more example of it, where the Justice Department is now in the business of covering up crimes rather than solving them. Now there's some other ways that he's trying to get out of this, And one of them is, of course, his standard move, which is to claim that he's being persecuted, right, and win people over in sympathy. So something incredibly perverse happened. Actually, this happened like right after you and I went on the air last week, so we weren't able to report on it, that the Wall Street Journal released a birthday greeting that Donald Trump wrote to Jeffrey Epstein on the occasion of his 50th birthday, with a little scribble, a little drawing of a naked girl. And in the greeting, it says, "Here's to keeping our secrets." Wink, wink, nod, nod. Okay. So obviously an allusion to their shared sex trafficking ring. So when the Wall Street Journal published this, right, this is evidence, right? This is powerful evidence that the charges against him are true. But in the perverse nature of MAGA world, somehow this actually made things better for Trump, because then he could say he was being attacked by the press. So you see, Harry, if you're accused by your wife of having an affair, the best thing to do is show her pictures of you having sex with another woman, and then she will believe that you're not having an affair, right?
Right. There
Wrong.
it is.
It doesn't make any sense. So they're showing you black and white, a letter, a piece of evidence that cannot be denied, but somehow that makes it less likely that he's guilty. Let's see how the New York Times described MAGA's reaction to the Wall Street Journal article. How Trump deflected MAGA's wrath over Epstein, at least for now. By tapping into other grievances, President Trump managed to turn one of the most fractious moments for his base into a unifying one. When the Wall Street Journal published a story detailing a decades-old letter with a lewd drawing that Mr. Trump allegedly sent Mr. Epstein for his birthday, Mr. Trump got a respite from the revolt as some of his core supporters rushed to his defense. Mr. Trump turned one of the most fractious moments for his base into one of the most unifying by tapping into MAGA's grievances, the deep mistrust of mainstream media, the disdain for Rupert Murdoch, and the belief that the president has been unfairly persecuted by his political foes. Almost immediately, many of those who had been critical of the administration's handling of the Epstein case cheered the president on as he vehemently denied the claims, sued the Journal, and ordered his attorney general to seek the release of more information. Quote, "The Murdoch's bizarre assault on the president galvanized his base, both because of content and process," Mr. Bannon said. "Now we are united as Trump goes on offense against the Murdochs, the courts, and the deep state."
You know, that lasted a couple of days. It's all been undone again. Kara Swisher predicted that this is not going away. There's going to be a steady drip of stuff that Trump did with Epstein. And she's right, as she usually is. Because I felt that shift of momentum, but it's definitely turned back again.
Well, funny you should mention that, because, it's interesting now that he is now taking on the Murdochs, right? Because this is his ecosystem, right? They not only publish the Wall Street Journal, but also Fox News. So the fact that, Trump will turn against anyone, right, who in any way crosses him. It doesn't matter who it is. There are no permanent alliances. No. But on the other hand, I'm not sure the Murdochs are the ones you really want to make enemies out of. They used to say, you don't want to fight with someone who buys ink by the barrel. In other words, the press, right, can really overpower your message. So far, that hasn't been the case. Well, because Fox News has been colluding with him, right? That's one of the reasons he keeps defying political gravity. Now that the Murdochs are on this story, right, that's a different story. And as you said, they're going to be dripping this story. Like every day is going to be a new piece of evidence. For example, the one that came out today. Justice Department told Trump in May that his name is among many in the Epstein files. Bondi also told the president at the meeting that Justice decided not to release more Epstein documents because of the presence of child pornography and the need to protect victims. So that's the next shoe to drop, that Bondi has informed Trump already that his name is in the Epstein files in multiple places.
Which he explicitly lied about a few days ago. It's on tape. I've been watching the tape over and over again. It shows up in every network show right now. Is him saying, "No, I'm not. I'm not in that."
So, and then finally, Harry, when all else fails, right?
Yes.
What does Trump do when he wants to change the topic of some accusation? He just simply refuses to answer the question and goes on a counterattack with some other accusation against Democrats that should somehow crowd out the discussion of his wrongdoing. So he's actually, but because he's a little demented, he is saying it out loud. He is instructing Republicans that if anyone asks anything about Epstein, they should say, but Obama stole the election. That is the official now talking point that he is suggesting that people use. So we're going to show a couple of tapes where he's being questioned about Epstein, and that's his response.
And remember, don't let them forget, it's so important, Obama cheated on the election. Look, the camera just went off. Obama, the red light just went off. Can you believe these people, how bad they are? Obama cheated. When they give you all the nonsense, Obama cheated and his people cheated, but he was there. You ever hear this? They talk about, if they ever even mention it, they never mention his name. Just the opposite with me. But they only mention my name. They don't mention any of you guys. They don't mention Tom. They don't mention Steve. They don't mention our great speaker. They mention Trump all the time. I'd like to have them mention you. But remember this, Obama cheated on the election. And we have it cold, hard, blue, and it's getting even more so because the stuff that's coming in is not even believable. So, and you should mention that every time they give you a question that's not appropriate. Just say, oh, by the way, Obama cheated on the election. You'll watch the camera turn off instantly.
So that's the important part at the end where he says, so remember, if anyone asks you an inappropriate question, which is code for about Epstein, you just respond that Obama stole the election. Well, that'll do it.
And by the way, Obama's been caught cold, hard, and blue.
And blue.
What was that?
Cold, hard, and blue. Yeah, this is the linguistic breakdown, right? That's not an expression, cold, hard, and blue.
No.
What does that mean?
It isn't.
And actually, we're going to play another piece of tape where he again is deflecting the question, again talking about Obama's treason. But again, just in addition to how obviously false it is and what an obvious attempt it is to change the topic, just listen to how disorganized his answer is.
From your perspective, who should the DOJ target as part of their investigation? What specific figures in the Obama administration?
Well, based on what I read, and I read pretty much what you read, it would be President Obama. He started it. And Biden was there with him, and Comey was there, and Clapper. The whole group was there. Brennan, they were all there in a room. Right here, this was the room. This is much more beautiful than it was then, but that's okay. I have nice pictures up. They came out of the vaults. They were in there for 100 years. This is much more beautiful. We have the Declaration of Independence now in the room, which wasn't here. I guess people didn't feel too good about putting it here, but I do. But you know what? If you look at those papers, they have them stone cold, and it was President Obama. It wasn't lots of people all over the place. It was them too. But the leader of the gang was President Obama, Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of him? And except for the fact that he gets shielded by the press for his entire life, that's the one look, he's guilty. It's not a question, I like to say, let's give it time. It's there. He's guilty. This was treason. This was every word you can think of. They tried to steal the election. They tried to obfuscate the election. They did things that nobody's ever even imagined, even in other countries. You've seen some pretty rough countries. This man has seen some pretty rough countries, but you've never seen anything like it. And we have all of the documents. And from what Tulsi told me, she's got thousands of additional documents coming.
Wait, what election is he talking about? He won the 2016 election.
No, he
Doesn't make
obfuscated it, Harry. He obfuscated it.
It doesn't make any sense at all.
No, it doesn't make any sense at all.
It's
every word you could think of. It's every. This is the kind of thing someone says who has a word finding problem. It's every word you could think of.
No, and notice how he had to start talking about the Oval Office and the beautiful pictures on the wall and the Declaration of Independence. I guess they were against putting that on the wall.
Yeah, right.
What?
I mean, this crazy digression about the decorations, and and he's done this before, going on these long tangents about the decorating of the Oval Office.
Actually, he's gone on it several times.
Yeah.
While a visiting head of state is right next to him.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no filter. There's no filter.
Don't forget, Harry. The Declaration of Independence was really what started the Civil War. He explained to us that once when he was in the. But it is a declaration of love. That's the other thing you need to know about the Declaration. So he is really bringing the Declaration back. He's bringing.
Well, that
it
was
back.
when he was asked what it meant to him, and he didn't know what it was.
Didn't know what it was. Right? It's a declaration of love.
And it's a
declaration. Actually, the one thing it definitely is not. It's more of a declaration of war. Saying, fuck you, King of England, we're leaving.
Yeah, it's a declaration of power. Right. I mean, anyway, it's watching him do that kind of, but really, again, just to remind everyone, Jeffrey Epstein was convicted. Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted, and there was a whole bunch of famous people who hung with this guy, who went to his island. Trump was one of them. A woman was recruited at Mar-a-Lago. I mean, this is all real. It's a fact. It has nothing to do with this phony thing. And what Tulsi Gabbard came up with was an email where Obama. The email says that there was no tampering of voting machines. So therefore, all of Obama's warnings about Russia, according to Tulsi, is just a conspiracy. But actually, it's not what happened. Obama, first of all, talked about Russia trying to influence the election through social media. Also announced that that manipulation did not affect the outcome of the election. He stated that. And Marco Rubio, who headed the Bipartisan Intelligence Committee, declared that Russia had interfered and was a threat. So it's all nonsense. But John, it doesn't make sense as an excuse.
Right. Harry, stop trying to change the subject. We've got him stone cold blue. And any word you could think of, too.
Stone cold and blue.
So that's our president. And speaking of that, well, we'll get to the dementia update in a minute. There's something I think that really sometimes, Harry, we report on stories that really knock the wind out from us, that really throw us for a loop. Last week on this show, we had Lori Weiner, an expert on the Holocaust. And we were kind of assessing, how far down the evolutionary chain we've fallen in terms of devolving into an authoritarian state. And we were searching, as we always do, for some hopium, right? And she's after all of our dire talk, she said, "But there's still some sources of resistance. For example, we still have all the comedians." We're very important satirists, right? That was one of her hopium points. Okay, and then the next day, I read that Colbert has been fired. It really shocked me, actually, that this the person who was the biggest person in late night television and really in some ways the chief satirist of Donald Trump, that person's voice would be silenced. I'm going to talk more about that, but you look like there's something you wanted to say about that.
No. I'm with you. It's horrifying.
Well, it gets even more horrifying because it's pretty blatant that he was fired for political reasons. And let me explain what the evidence is for that. Okay. So as many of you know, the Trump administration sued CBS and their parent company, Paramount, for allegedly doctoring the 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris, which they did no such thing. But they have the power to block a very important merger for the Paramount company. They're merging with a company called Skydance Productions. And we're about to learn a lot more about Skydance Productions. In fact, Skydance Productions is not really merging with Paramount. They're acquiring Paramount. I mean, oftentimes with mergers, that's what happens. We call it a merger, but really one company is taking over the other. So is it a coincidence that 2 weeks after Paramount settles with the government, they fire Colbert? I suspect that was part of the settlement. It wasn't part that was written down, but it was part that was negotiated orally. And in fact, it's probably also not a coincidence that his firing was announced 3 days after, on the air, he described the Paramount government deal as a bribe,
right?
Exposing the truth. And not only do they say they're getting rid of Colbert, they're getting rid of late night. That's a show that's been around for 30 years, which means there won't be a comedian, right, to satirize the government late at night on CBS. That's gone. And, again, I always feel like we're just because there's so many outrages and they're happening so fast, and the Democrats tend to be a little weak. We underreact to these things. But Chris Murphy has been someone that we have consistently praised for stepping up and bringing attention to these things. Here's what Chris Murphy had to say about the firing of Colbert.
So I want to tell you why the cancellation of Stephen Colbert's show matters so much. We are on the precipice of entering a censorship state in which Donald Trump is using the powers of the federal government in order to erase criticism from the airwaves. What's happening at CBS right now is bone-chilling. CBS's parent company, Paramount, is trying to get a merger approved, and they need that merger to be approved by the Trump administration. And so in a variety of different ways, Paramount is providing monetary and political favors to Donald Trump. First, they settled a totally bogus lawsuit that they would have won in a walk in court that was filed against them by Trump. They essentially just paid him $16 million personally. Then Paramount went to 60 Minutes, their flagship news program, and told them to stop criticizing Donald Trump so much. Why? Because they need this merger approved. And then finally, they have now canceled Stephen Colbert's show, knowing that Stephen Colbert was a nightly thorn in the side of Donald Trump. This is all clearly designed to get their merger approved so that their millionaire and billionaire owners and investors who are already filthy rich can become even more filthy rich. This is what happens when these massive corporations control the flow of information at the same time that you have an administration that is shameless about using the official powers given to them by the Constitution and by statute in order to compel political loyalty from the owners of those media companies. This is a really, really dangerous moment. Stephen Colbert didn't get thrown off the air because he wasn't doing well. He was the highest rated show on TV in late night. He was canceled, very likely, because Paramount and its owners are trying to get rich off of this merger, and Donald Trump has made it clear to them and everybody else in the media space that if you want any favors from me, then you have to silence my critics on your platforms.
Wow.
Yeah, very clear and very chilling. But as we like to say on this show, it gets worse. Much, much worse. Why? Because let me introduce you to the man who's buying CBS. It's a name you may or may not be familiar with. His name is Larry Ellison. He's a tech billionaire. He's the founder and president of Oracle, which is a networking company. He's really one of the big tech billionaires, but not one of the maybe more well-known ones. He's a very close friend of Elon Musk's. He's he had been on the Tesla board. He's a major investor in X, and he's a friend. He claims to be a personal friend of Donald Trump. So because I feel like people might not be familiar with who Larry Ellison is, and because I believe he is such a threat that if an Elon Musk type character is buying a major network, this has been the erosion, I think, Harry, that ultimately has been the thing that has been doing us in, because he who controls the media controls the minds of Americans and controls reality and controls politics. So what the conservatives have been doing is wisely using their money to buy up media properties. So you have famously Elon Musk, who bought Twitter and then turned, when during Twitter's golden age, we didn't know it was Twitter's golden age. Duty to Warn had a very active account. We had 500,000 followers. We got 100 million views a month. But we always used to disparage Twitter and call it a cesspool. Little did we know. We had no idea what a cesspool looked like until Elon Musk took it over and turned it into a right-wing propaganda machine. But this is part of a trend. Sinclair, the local TV, the conservative guy who owns all these local TV stations, has been buying up newspapers. He's bought my local newspaper, the Baltimore Sun, and many or most of the writers, some of whom are colleagues and friends of mine, have quit. CNN is now partially owned by Liberty Media. That may or may not be affecting the coverage. You feel, we've discussed it before, that their coverage is still pretty straightforward. Some people have said that they've tilted rightward, but the point being is that this is their strategy, right? And so this is a 9-paragraph long article that I'm going to, or nine slides. It's so long, you and I are going to alternate as to who reads which one. But it's very, very important that the audience understand what is happening here and who the characters are. This is actually from a profile, by the way, in the New York Times of Larry Ellison. It's actually from April, so some of it is a little dated, but it was a real deep dive into who Larry Ellison is and his attempt to buy media properties, including, by the way, TikTok. He is a 12.5% owner of the American subsidiary of TikTok, which of course is one of the other major social media platforms. How Trump could make Larry Ellison the next media mogul. The co-founder of Oracle and friend of President Trump, who was a flamboyant fixture in the 1990s, has returned to the spotlight through, of all things, TikTok.
For decades, Larry Ellison reveled in being the Silicon Valley executive who really knew how to have a good time. He spent as much as $200 million building a Japanese-inspired imperial villa near Palo Alto, California, bought the 6th largest Hawaiian island, and dated and married and divorced with never-ending zeal.
Few paid much attention to exactly what his database company Oracle did. Sometimes neither did Mr. Ellison. He did not show up for his keynote talk at Oracle's annual convention in San Francisco in 2013 because he was on his yacht trying to win the America's Cup, which he did. A biography about him was titled, "The Difference Between God and Larry Ellison is that God doesn't think he's Larry Ellison."
With a fortune of $175 billion, there is not much left for Mr. Ellison to buy that would seriously dent his wallet. He broke a Florida record in 2022 when he purchased a 22-acre estate near Palm Beach. But at $173 million, the price was 0.1% of his wealth. He invested $1 billion in Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter that same year, because he said at the time, it would be lots of fun.
Now 80 years old and married for the 5th or possibly the 6th time, Mr. Ellison is expanding his ambitions beyond having fun and surrounding himself with beautiful things, following a path laid down by his friend, Mr. Musk, who has at least 6 companies that feed off one another. Mr. Ellison also appears to be planning to grow his corporate empire.
Oracle keeps emerging as a possible bidder for TikTok. The wildly popular video app that Congress has decreed needs to divest itself of its ownership by the Chinese internet company ByteDance or be banned in the United States. On Wednesday, President Trump met with 10 White House officials to discuss a new ownership structure for the app. The deadline for a deal is Saturday, though TikTok deadlines have come and gone before.
Mr. Musk, backed by President Trump, has obliterated the lines between public and private. He is blowing up government agencies and using his vast wealth to try to sway elections. Mr. Ellison, who may be closer to Mr. Trump than any mogul this side of Mr. Musk, appears to want nothing less than to bring the country under the benevolent sway of artificial intelligence, which he has said will bring about an era of bounty and harmony.
Mr. Ellison is putting up most of the $8 billion bid by his son David to buy Paramount, owner of the fabled Hollywood studio, as well as CBS, MTV, and other properties that generate news and content. The deal still needs regulatory approval. TikTok, meanwhile, is all about producing content. It has a monthly active user base of 1.5 billion, about a tenth of them in the United States.
And then there's the wild card factor, Mr. Ellison's proximity to President Trump. In January, Mr. Ellison was prominently featured at the White House for the announcement of a project called Stargate, which would build data centers for artificial intelligence. President Trump was asked if Mr. Musk might buy TikTok, and he volunteered that I'd like Larry to buy it too.
Mr. Ellison has recently been trying to make the world better by pushing for a surveillance society. There would be cameras everywhere, with every movement analyzed by AI. Quote, citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and reporting everything that's going on, he told Oracle investors last fall. It's unimpeachable.
Larry Ellison himself hasn't personally invested directly in TikTok. This is a follow-up from ChatGPT, but through as to where he is with TikTok now. But through Oracle, Ellison's company holds a 12.5% minority stake in TikTok's U.S. operations as part of the U.S. Trusted Tech Partner arrangement. Oracle's stake reflects a broader partnership rather than a full acquisition. ByteDance retains the majority ownership, 80%, while Oracle oversees U.S. user data security and hosting under U.S. jurisdiction. So think about all the levels of scary here, okay? First of all, we have another Elon Musk type character taking over CBS and also influencing, taking over part of TikTok. Okay. Remember we reported the last week or the week before that they almost kicked Midas Touch off of TikTok for their negative statements about Donald Trump, claiming that they were inaccurate, which they were not. Well, could there be a connection? And also, in addition to the fact that we now are going to be turning CBS into Fox News, basically, Larry Ellison has this very idealistic vision of a surveillance state. Because after all, Harry, if we are constantly under surveillance and the government is constantly seeing us on camera and analyzing our movements with AI, well, we're bound to behave better, right? We're going to be our best selves when we know that we're under constant video surveillance by the government.
Well, this is what China has done using social media. There's a terrifying and wonderful book called We Have Been Harmonized. And it shows the way in which ordinary citizens are tracked through their phone in China. Mm-hmm. There's one slight bright spot. I wish it were a real bright spot, which is that television network news is becoming less and less important. Mm-hmm. Even cable news is, so that, Glenn Beck and Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly are not affiliated with Fox News. Mm-hmm. They just have their own shows on YouTube and on the internet, and they have huge followings. So it may be a dangerous and terrible move to take over CBS News and CBS and to fire Colbert, who's a brilliant commentator, and that's dangerous. But it may be a little late to try to control the public through networks.
Yeah. Harry, just to stamp out your bright spot and just extinguish your hope, isn't it interesting that not only does Larry Ellison own 12.5% of TikTok, but he's been put in charge of data security, the man who wants to use all of our data to surveil us. So,
Yeah.
you know, and also as these tech billionaires, these Trump colluding tech billionaires get control of these social media platforms, they're finding, and yes, guys, pun intended, trumped up charges to kick the liberals off. Midas Touch has been was almost thrown off of TikTok. We reported on Really American, the network that the channel that sponsors our show, was taken off of. They gave them a strike, and we're going to take them off the air for an entire week. It eventually got resolved, but there's a pattern here. Okay, which is you're saying, oh, don't worry about CBS because, you know, we have different influencers on social media. Yeah, but the people who own the social media are like the people who own the networks, and they all don't like us.
Well, that's true, too. But I do think there's the new media. I mean, you're talking about Midas Touch. I mean, it's the biggest YouTube channel as far as progressive politics goes. It's huge. And it's not going anywhere. So I don't know. I would have said Colbert wasn't going anywhere last week, Harry. No, I hear you. I'm just saying that Kara Swisher said that YouTube is television.
Mm-hmm.
That the networks have been dying for a long time. Mm-hmm. And I'm very concerned, and I love Colbert, and I'm so sorry this happened to him. But you know, things are shifting, and I just don't think that this move, as dangerous as it truly is as dangerous as it would have been 20 years ago.
Well, except that it's not stopping there. That's what I'm trying to say. In other words, we showed an article a few weeks ago about how Google, the owner of YouTube, is explicitly changing the way in which they're handling anti-Trump content. Because you know they want to make a deal with the government just like everybody else. Yes. You know, it's sort of, I feel more, Harry, like we're walking the plank. You know what I mean? Like, okay, all right, so we don't have we don't have the newspapers anymore. Oh, okay, well, we don't have this anymore. We don't have Twitter anymore. Okay, we don't have. Yes,
I'm walking the plank. My hands are tied by my back. I'm walking out over the ocean.
When you're walking the plank, I don't think hope is an appropriate emotion. I'm just saying.
All right.
Well, listen.
Thanks for
beating
it out of me, John.
You're welcome. Just beating the last residue of hope out of you with like a carpet beater.
Where's Ahmed Baba when you need him?
Yeah, we need him now, Ahmed. Our hopium, he's our hopium supplier. We need him badly. So that's the bad news. The other thing that I want to keep people, you know, abreast of is that Donald Trump is continuing to show accelerating cognitive decline, and the press is continuing not to cover it. Okay. Last week, actually, Lori Weiner on our show made us aware of a piece of tape that we hadn't seen from last week. So this is a week old, but I still wanted to show it to you. This is where Trump is claiming that the Unabomber took classes at MIT with his uncle, John Trump.
Okay, show it. Just show it. Don't tell what's going to be in it. They've got to see it if they haven't heard about it.
Okay, here's the tape.
Although my uncle was at MIT, one of the great professors, 51 years, whatever, he was the longest serving professor in the history of MIT, 3 degrees in nuclear, chemical, and math. That's a smart man. Kaczynski was one of his students. Do you know who Kaczynski was? There's very little difference between a madman and a genius. But Kaczynski, I said, what kind of a student was he, Uncle John, Dr. John Trump? He said, what kind of a student? And then he said, seriously good. He said he'd go around correcting everybody, but it didn't work out too well for him.
So on Tuesday, the president told a very detailed story about his uncle, noted scientist John Trump, and Theodore Kaczynski, the late Unabomber. He said that Dr. Trump taught Ted Kaczynski. Ted Kaczynski was not identified as the Unabomber until 1996, 11 years after John Trump passed away. It would have been impossible for John Trump to have ever discussed the Unabomber with the president. So what was he talking about? And I have one follow-up.
Andrew, with so many issues going on in the world, I'm a little bit surprised you would ask such a question, although I'm not sometimes coming from you, I will say, but I'm willing to give you an answer. Nevertheless, the president's uncle did, in fact, teach at MIT. He was a very intelligent professor. The president's very proud of his family. In fact, the president has a letter from his uncle on the MIT letterhead that sits in the Oval Office dining room. Maybe we'll let you see it sometime.
You know, Carolyn Levitt is among those people for whom I have enormous contempt, who I truly despise. Here she is sounding so superior and contemptuous when she's so clearly not answering the question that, insulting our intelligence. He couldn't possibly have talked. And by the way, the other thing that Carl didn't mention is the Unabomber didn't go to MIT. So he couldn't have been in John Trump's class. They couldn't have discussed the Unabomber. And, but, I'm surprised you would ask with all these important things. And, but I'll answer it. His uncle did teach at MIT and he's very proud of him. No one's questioning whether his uncle taught at MIT. That wasn't the question. We all know that wasn't the question.
See, I'm speechless. She's turned me into Harpo Marx. I want to take a horn and go.
Want to hit people horn every time she lies.
I mean, it's just so horrible, and she just sits there not answering the question. But can we just point out that Trump tells the story with such confidence, like a reminiscence. Hey,
yes,
Uncle John, what was he like? What was Ted Kaczynski like? And notice he said there's a fine line between a madman and genius. Who is he really talking about?
Well,
right.
That's a good point. Could be a projection. But you're right. He elaborates on the story. He said he was correcting everyone, but that didn't go so well. This is really, and this is important for people to understand, this is how people with dementia talk. It's called confabulation. You take little pieces of things that you remember, that you know, and you weave them, not the kind of weave that Trump tries to present as some act of genius, but in a more kind of primitive, gummed way, gumming things together way. You remember things that didn't happen, right? You remember stories that you're actually creating in your head to fill in the blanks. And this is the kind of story, and a lot of times we've said, well, how do you know if he's just lying because he's such a liar? Well, if he's lying about Jeffrey Epstein, right, you got to believe he's lying to lie. Right? If he's making up a bizarre, rambling story that's not really benefiting him in any way, it's just sort of a casual reminiscence, that's dementia.
It is.
That's dementia.
But what you see, that pleasure on his face, we've seen this before. He loves talking about his brilliant uncle who was a professor at MIT because it confirms what he's also called the racehorse theory of human beings. That is, everything that's good about us is genetically determined. It allows him to say, I come from this great man. So I'm a genius too. I'm a genius too. And he gets that dreamy, faraway look, my uncle, and we talked about it. And you're right, confabulation. And what some people, clinicians, have talked about is that with dementia, the associations are tangential, but they're not random. Right. So he has a good feeling about Uncle John. And then he begins to believe that Ted Kaczynski went to MIT, which he didn't. He went to Harvard. And then it's almost like dream work. It's almost like the part of us that creates dreams at night. They're not random, but there are stories about ourselves. It's like it fills in the gaps with dream-like connections.
Yeah. Right. So his reality is becoming dreamlike. Which is really very terrifying because, he might not know the difference between a dream and reality when he does something really, really dire and impulsive.
Even when that's cold, hard, and blue.
Especially when it's cold, hard, and blue. Jesus.
Can't make it up.
We're not done, folks.
Keep going. I think you have a couple more, John. Let's see.
I got a couple more. So, Harry, I don't know if you knew this, but think tanks think tanks are a really important thing, and actually it began with people having to go into tanks, actually think in tanks.
And he has these think tanks, and they build buildings for people that think, and it's really not thinking. It's a little bit of combination of thinking, but it's something you sort of have or you don't have. They don't. The job he's done is just terrible.
It's something you do or you have or you don't have.
Yeah,
that made no sense.
It makes no sense. It's just it's a string of words that kind of relate to intelligence or ideas or something.
But Johnny, he got lost in there.
Yeah,
he actually got lost for a second and recovered, didn't he?
Right. Absolutely.
You think there, and they think, but they sort of thought, but it's something you either have or you don't.
Right.
No sense. Right.
Right. No transition. No sense whatsoever. Now, one of the things that we have been railing about, and I think railing is a good word, is that the press is not covering these blatant signs of dementia, with an exception. Okay. Unfortunately, it's not an American newspaper, but the Irish Independent and also in the UK, the Mirror, have been covering these blatant signs of dementia. So here is the Irish Independent's headline about the piece of tape that we just saw. Donald Trump dementia fears spike as president claims think tanks are in actual tanks. The U.S. president has sparked further concern over his cognitive abilities following a press conference in the Oval Office. President Donald Trump appeared to suggest that think tanks involved physical tanks in a mind-blowing statement Tuesday that has again raised concerns about whether he has dementia. Yes, they use the word dementia. Earlier this month, an expert noted a crucial sign that President Trump's cognitive ability was aging along with him. Dr. John Gartner, speaking to a radio host, Dean Obadiah, said the president's worsening mental condition was visible. I'm just offended, Harry. They called me an expert and not an acclaimed psychologist in this article. Remember last time we were discussing my acclaim and whether we acclaimed each other, but but they're reporting on it, for God's sake. Thank God. But I mean, think about, the exception proves the rule. Here's this one little newspaper in Ireland that's actually paying attention to these gross signs of cognitive slippage.
No, we're back to calling out in the wilderness and saying, look. And it's just not being covered. The press now just sort of says, hey, that's weird.
Yeah.
Like, oh, look, you made up something. Well,
yeah.
People don't make up things like that without mental issues.
Right, exactly. You're right, Harry. We are voices crying in the wilderness. I think that's true. And the wilderness has gotten bigger since he was elected. Let's see another one of his demented statements.
Okay.
1/5, 1/2. It's a tremendous difference. And this is for the people in this room, because this is something that nobody else can do. We're going to get the drug prices down, not 30 or 40%, which would be great, not 50 or 60. No, we're going to get them down 1,000%, 600%, 500%, 1,500%. Numbers that are not even thought to be achievable, because I've used a certain talent that I have and convinced the drug companies that you have no choice. The drug companies...
Harry, not only are these numbers not thought to be achievable, they're not actual numbers. There is no such thing as reducing something by 1,500%. Once you reduced it by 100%, it's zero. So what would that mean to reduce it by 1,500%? Are they going to pay me $150 to buy my Lipitor? I don't understand.
I know I'm going to finally get money for all the meds that I have to take. I'm really excited.
This would be a big boon for us senior citizens, because we buy a lot of drugs. So I'm glad they're going to be paying me now to take all the medication.
1,000% at least, John. 1,000%.
At least, because no one else could do it. They thought it wasn't achievable.
And again, this is a little crazy.
It's a little crazy.
It really
Right?
is. But
It really is.
But he speaks with such confidence that the press isn't really thinking about what it means to say crazy things with confidence.
Mm-hmm.
It confuses them, I think.
I forget who this quote is attributed to, but they said, if you're not sure of the pronunciation of a word, say it loudly.
Yeah, no, that was old Professor Strunk from Strunk and White's Elements of Style. If you don't know how to pronounce a word, say it loudly. He's right about that, because if you don't know how to say something, well,
I think I'm a great example of that, because I'm mispronouncing words all the time. So you see, it works. Not really, because then people in the comments always tell me I'm always pointed out. Lastly, in the dementia news, okay, part of dementia is losing your memory. Okay, and I don't mean things like not being able to come up with a name, but really forgetting like major stuff. Here is some videotape where he is railing against Biden for appointing Jerome Powell, who he's mad at now because he won't be a rubber stamp and a puppet for the interest rate slashes that he'd like to use to juice the economy. He's actually trying to act like an independent Federal Reserve chairman, and that's driving Trump crazy. And he wants to fire him, but then people are saying, no, but then the stock market will crash, so don't fire him. So, okay. So here he is railing against Jerome Powell and railing against Biden for appointing him.
People wanting to get a mortgage. People want to buy a house. He's a terrible Fed chair. I was surprised he was appointed. I was surprised, frankly, that Biden put him in and extended him. As president, there are a few decisions more important than nominating leaders of integrity and good judgment to hold trusted positions in public office. And few of those trusted positions are more important than the chairman of the Federal Reserve. Accordingly, it is my pleasure and my honor to announce my nomination of Jerome Powell to be the next chairman of the Federal Reserve. Congratulations, Jay.
Thank you, Mr. President.
I mean, this is a dementia level memory loss. This is not a small thing, right?
Mm-mm.
But, you know, we just keep glossing over it. Just keep on trucking.
Well, he's so confident.
That's right. And the press seems to be so oblivious. Unless you work for the Irish Independent. So hats off to the Irish Independent, but thumbs down for everybody else.
Yeah, a tip of the hat to the Independent.
Exactly. Well, you know, that's one thing you love about the Irish, right? They'll tell you off. They'll tell you what they think. That's one of the things I love about them.
Fantastic culture. Really is. Just wonderful.
Yeah. Well, Harry, you had some good news about the way people are feeling about immigration and Trump's immigration policies.
Well, yeah, I was really pleased to hear Fareed Zakaria at the beginning of his broadcast last week talk about immigration and the shifts in the public's feelings about Trump's policies. And I don't know if you watch Fareed Zakaria. It's mostly a show about foreign affairs. And, you know, people may disagree with Zakaria for different things, but no one would ever suggest that he was either dumb or unserious. He's a really smart journalist and observer. And I thought you guys would appreciate this, you know, a couple of minutes of the beginning of what Fareed calls his take at the beginning of every episode.
But first, here's my take. You've seen the blizzard of scary images. Immigration agents taking parents away in front of their kids, masked officers raiding neighborhoods, men detained in remote centers. But here is the surprising fact behind the mayhem. Donald Trump has deported fewer people per month than Barack Obama did, and barely more than Joe Biden during a similar span last year, according to ICE data obtained by NBC News. Trump signals that his administration is fearlessly executing mass deportations, but the numbers reveal a somewhat different reality. Since February, his administration has deported 14,700 people per month on average, according to NBC. That's far below Obama's peak in 2013, when he deported 36,000 per month. And it's not even close to the administration's reported goal of deporting 1 million people in a year. Trump's deportation dragnet is less effective than those of his predecessors because it is chaotic, theatrical, and detached from the systems that actually work, rather than effectively coordinating with local law enforcement, following rules, norms, and laws, or expanding and expediting legal processing. Trump has prioritized optics over outcomes. What his administration lacks in strategy, it tries to compensate for with spectacle, sweeping up school children, targeting families, broadcasting raids on social media. But this is a rare case of Trump's Teflon wearing thin. Immigration was once his strongest issue politically. Today it is fast becoming a vulnerability. According to a recent Quinnipiac University poll, Trump's approval on immigration has dropped sharply, with 55% disapproving and only 40% approving. A recent Gallup poll showed that the number of Americans who view immigration as a good thing has risen from 64% in 2024 to 79% now, a record high. Even more telling is the erosion of support among independents, many of them suburban voters who had once been sympathetic to a tougher border stance, but are now recoiling at scenes of cruelty and overreach. The numbers are striking. Support for deporting all undocumented immigrants is now below 40%. Support for a pathway to citizenship for long-term undocumented immigrants has climbed to nearly 80%.
That's huge. And it's really good to see a real backfire on this.
Yeah.
And by the way, we're seeing similar drops in confidence around the economy. He's losing his signature issues. Politico had an op-ed today called "He's losing by winning."
Yeah,
and I think we're seeing it. And this does give me, John, don't stomp on this bit of light I'm bringing in.
No, I'm not going to, because I agree with you about this. Well, because there's a backlash, right? I mean, there's a level of human decency in the American people whose consciences are being shocked. You know, they may be for a stronger border. They weren't for this kind of Nazi-like performative reign of terror. I mean, that's what it is. It's a reign of terror. And that's the point, of course. I love the fact that he points out that it's actually very inefficient. I mean, Obama was able to deport more because, he actually worked with like systems and processes and, coordinated the different parts of government, like things, people who like are actually trying to get stuff done, right? Actually use like processes and rules and, that's how like things get done in the government. Okay. If you just unleash a bunch of masked thugs on the street to terrorize people, it's not really a very efficient system. But in another way, it's extremely efficient because terrorism is the point, right? They're trying to terrify the American people more than they care about how many people they actually deport. The terror is not a bug; it's a feature. But in the Prince, Machiavelli said, it's better to be feared than loved, but you don't want to be hated. You don't want to be seen as so morally abhorrent, right, that the population literally recoils from how evil you are. And I think that's sort of what's happening here. People's basic humanity is recoiling, right? I wanted you to secure the border. I didn't want you to scare my housekeeper. I didn't want you to create a situation where I have no one to pick my crops or cut my meat. I didn't want you to deport my friend and neighbor. I didn't want you to deport a longtime business owner who actually employs some of the people in my family. I didn't want you to deport my friends and neighbors who have been nothing but decent people and all the time I've known them. I certainly don't want masked agents on the street knocking people down, breaking their windows, hurling them to the ground. I mean, there was a horrifying article. I didn't have time to include it because we always have too much media, but I just want to verbally speak to it. There are now some people who have made it back from the prison in El Salvador. A few of them have been brought back for various reasons. And what they are reporting is exactly as hellish as we imagined. Constant beatings, being told you're going to die here, literally being told, abandon all hope, ye who enter here. Just the most savage treatment you can imagine. And these people who came back, the thing that got them in this hellhole is they were stopped. One of them was stopped by the police for some reason, broken taillight, speeding, whatever, showed his identification. And then the policeman asked him to take off his shirt. And he complied, and he had a Bible verse tattooed on his chest, a Bible verse, which caused the policeman to call ICE, which they then interpreted as a gang tattoo. And that's what landed this guy in this. I mean, it's literally hell. It's literally a hell hole.
John, the person I can't find information on, and maybe our listeners, our viewers can help me with it, is that there was that makeup artist in Florida.
Yeah, I remember him.
Seized and sent to El Salvador. And I thought, to that terrible prison, I thought they're going to kill him.
Yeah.
And he did nothing wrong. And
Right.
it just, and there's so many stories like that we don't even know. Hundreds
So
of people.
this is the good news we're trying to talk about. But the point is, he's being so bad that it is shocking the conscience of normal, average people. And that is good news. And the other piece of good news I just want to throw in, this happened just a few hours ago. The appeals court has declared that Trump's birthright citizenship or executive order is unconstitutional. There are no uncertain terms. They're calling it unconstitutional. It was a vote of 2-1. You can guess who appointed the one who voted against it. I'll let you figure it out. But remember, there are judges. And then there are Trump judges. But still, that's a very important step in terms of stopping this or putting some kind of stop on this anti-immigration persecution. So there is some good news. And I'm not going to stomp on that hopium, because I think, and I think your clip is very good, as you were showing that, ironically, support for immigrants is going up.
Way up.
Yeah, good. Well, we're very excited to have Dr. Matt Ditty with us on the show. We've had him here before. I'll let you know about his credentials, but he's someone who is, as part of his clinical expertise, an expert in sexual abuse and its impact. He's a doctor of social work, and he's the director and founder of the Ebright Collaborative, a freestanding dialectical behavior therapy program in Delaware. He teaches master's level social workers part-time at the University of Pennsylvania, and he trains and consults mental health providers in large systems through the Treatment Implementation Collaborative. He specializes in the treatment of suicide, self-harm, post-traumatic stress, using DBT as his primary modality. Without any further ado, let's bring on Dr. Ditty.
Welcome, Matt. Great to have you back.
Thank you so much for having me. It's very different this time. As you know, last time it was a little nerve-wracking because it was the week before inauguration and there was so much uncertainty, and I felt I had to jump in there. But I have to tell you, it's been an entire paper tiger. It's been nothing but fabulousness by you allowing me to use your platform to out myself and come free. I feel free. So thank you.
Well, nowadays people do sort of have to feel like they're taking a risk, right, to speak out. So one of the things that people might not know about dialectical behavior therapy, was originally developed by Marshall Linehan in I think the 90s to really help borderline personality disorder. We're now discovering it can be applied to many other things as well. It's basically based on Buddhist principles, helping people to become mindful, and then from there be able to sort of deal with their problems in a more rational way. And Matt, you can correct me if I'm being simplistic in any way here, talking about DBT. But as a result, and I'm also a specialist in working with borderline personality disorder, though I'm not a DBT therapist, But the reason I'm mentioning that is because if you've had a career as a mental health professional working with these patients, you have seen up close and personal and over a long period of time in a very deep way how destructive childhood sexual abuse is, the long-term damage that it does to people's lives. And so actually, we have had you on the show. We were a little lazy. We didn't even have a guest. And you emailed me saying, I want to be on the show. And the reason I'm saying that is I appreciate your volunteering yourself, because it's this Epstein thing, right? This is really the moment of reckoning. When we had the inauguration, you were the one that brought up, how can people let this go? How can they let it go that Trump is a serial sexual abuser? Now we're really flash forward, right, 6 months, and it's even more stark. And really, this is kind of almost an existential moral question for our country, right? Will we let it go? Will we let it go?
For sure. You know, to back up a little bit, just to share a little bit, my family was a host family for foster kids. And so that's where I saw a lot of sexual trauma. And I also saw the behaviors up close and personal. I had front row seats. And then in my clinical training, my very first supervisor was Edna Foa, an expert in post-traumatic stress disorder treatment. And one of the things I learned is that in the treatment of PTSD, or the research on treating PTSD, anybody who was suicidal, self-harming, had disordered eating, or substance use problems were excluded from the research on PTSD. And I thought, there is my entire caseload. And that is why I switched to the treatment of suicide and self-harm. And then that brought me to borderline personality disorder and all of that stuff, because, you know, in those days it was type 1 trauma versus type 2 trauma. And it kind of fit more what I was looking for, or trying to treat the types of folks that I was seeing, people who were children when they were abused, which is also very relevant for this moment. But one of the things about suicide and self-harm is that it serves to avoid thinking about sexual abuse. It's worth saying that even just listening to this, I bet there's a lot of urges to turn this off right now.
Exactly.
Because it's just such a terrible thing to think about, to feel. It's awful. And so I actually get why our country has looked away. Right-wing media doesn't want to talk about it. And left-wing folks are tuned out. Not your audience, of course, but a lot of people are just tuned out of this because it's just so awful. But the problem is, when we tuned out of this really terrible, awful thing, I've had concern all along that we were just priming the pump in our own minds to tune everything else out.
I see.
And
I just want to say I so agree with you. And I teach adult psychopathology. I did at Cornell for many years. And when I would talk about, there's one year I talked about sexual abuse and the consequences. And one of the young women in the class came up to me afterwards and said there was a whole bunch of her friends just dissociating right in the middle of the lecture because of their own histories. Right. And now your point that if we dissociate to one issue, and you were really bringing it up in January because Pete Hegseth had been nominated, who had been accused of abusing a staff member of his and then paying her off, that the notion that it leads to more dissociation, that is, to blocking out more things so that everything becomes acceptable.
That has been my theory of the case since Access Hollywood, honestly. And I've been thinking, I've been repeating this and repeating this and repeating this, honestly, for 10 years. Because to me, it is like, if we don't go at this thing, then it's really hard to talk about healthcare. It's really hard to talk about, you know, feeding immigrants to alligators and insurrection and pooping in the Capitol and all the other filthy things that we've seen. But this is kind of the original sin, at least in my mind. And for your viewers, just a little helpful tip, like, if you're dissociating right now, a little thing you can do is stand up, because your body will actually dissociate less if it's trying to balance. It's just there are little tips you can do to dissociate less. And honor your feelings. Treat them like a dear friend. In fact, I think last time we were talking about radical acceptance, we got as far as accepting hard truths by saying them out loud, but we didn't get to accepting them with emotions or behaviors. And I think that's another really important part. We have to honor, I am happy to cry about this, and I'm not ashamed to cry about sexual abuse. And if you are, that's a problem, and I will feed my liberal tears to anybody who wants them because I'm not ashamed.
Good. I agree with you.
Actually, I'm blocking on her name, but the one who was one of the star witnesses who committed suicide.
Virginia Giuffre.
Thank you, Virginia Giuffre. See, this is when you do a podcast and you're old, you need cues like on names and things like that. But thank you. But she is an example, right? A very clear example. It was the sexual abuse she experienced as a child. We know that was causal. We know that was causal. As clinicians, right? We know that was a major, major cause in her suicide.
Well, followed by the abuse at the hands of Epstein and his crew. I mean,
there's also just so much, there's the Access Hollywood, there's 28 plus accusers, there's his own damn statements. I mean, did you see this one on Howard Stern where he was asked if he had an age limit and he goes, well, I wouldn't go as low as 12. It's so gross. It's so gross. And it's all right out there. And I'm sorry, but I'm going to say this and they can sue me. Don't sue you. But the details that were described in the E. Jean Carroll case, I don't care. Behind closed doors in any therapy session, I would describe them as rape, and a judge confirmed it. So if we want to split hairs about New York state law and what they determined to be rape or not, come on, that's ridiculous.
No, I think your theory about the Access Hollywood tape began us all kind of dissociating and numbing ourselves maybe to the moral outrage. But it occurs to me that it's really surreal that we're talking about the fact that, and you're right, the evidence is all over the place. I mean, we could go on all day talking about the evidence. He and Epstein were thick as thieves. They concocted this together. They did this together. They used Mar-a-Lago as a staging point. He's been on the plane and the island a zillion times. We have people testifying about sex parties at the Upper East Side mansion. And we have witnesses to back up the stories that Katie Johnson said the person who recruited her is back in. We have so much evidence, and yet we've been turning a blind eye to it. But yet something's really interesting is happening, Matt. Suddenly MAGA cares. And that's the part that I actually find to be amazing. I finally have gotten to the point where I said, there is no line, right? I keep thinking, well, is there a line? Is there a line where, okay, if he was sacrificing infants, to Moloch, on Fifth Avenue, would that be the line? And I finally in the boiling frog phenomenon, as we've crossed every Rubicon, crossed every red line, I finally just sort of threw up my hands and said, I guess there is no line. And now all of a sudden it appears there is a line. So now we have a very interesting phenomenon where they are desperately covering this up in plain sight. And that's what we've been talking about a lot during the show today. All of their ham-fisted, obvious efforts to cover this up. And yet, will it quell the outrage among his own base to know the truth? And this really is a moral moment, right? Because if we're willing to look aside and say, so our president is a child rapist, serial child rapist, so he traffics young girls. And that's okay. Then we really have essentially America's already fallen, right? Correct. As a society, we basically, become Caligula as Rome.
Absolutely. And, I was thinking about a few things. I was in the exact same place to the point where I'll be brutally honest, shrinking Trump no longer is exciting to me because the results are in. Right. And it's the Republicans. Okay. Yeah. And I moved on. The results are in. They didn't have any line. And then I was on to the Democrats. What's your line? What are you going to do about the fact that they have no line? Sure. That was where I was going until this magical moment. And oddly enough, I have been feeling, I know a lot of people are probably really hurting with all this sex abuse talk. But for me, this is kind of like blood on an operating room floor to a surgeon. Like this is something I deal with every day. So to me, I'm relieved. People actually care.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah. Thank God. Yeah.
But remember that MAGA wanted to expose a ring of pederasts, right?
Right.
Who were Democrats. and they were clamoring to get the Democrats. And I think, Matt, I'm thinking about your ideas. I mean, it seems as though the terror of sexual abuse, with all of the ways it affects everyone, whether they acknowledge it or not, it's almost as if the base took that disgust and terror of sexual abuse and they placed it into this theory that it's Epstein and his ring of Democratic and business leaders. And we got to get the sexual abuse, but we're going to get it because it's all there. And of course, what they weren't thinking is that Epstein and Trump were close friends. I mean, Epstein, we now have evidence that Epstein actually had someone procure 12-year-old girls. I mean, this really happened.
Totally.
And now they're having to confront the fact that Trump's in the files. It's going to be a terrible conflict for them as it comes out.
And let's not forget that in his very first announcement for presidency in 2015, he rode down that escalator and accused Mexicans of being rapists.
Yes.
So that exact thing is, it's immigrants and Democrats. And here's the thing, that if you take 10 seconds to think about it, large groups of people don't rape. That's like taking any random state and saying, you know, Oklahomans rape. It's stupid. It's stupid. Yeah. Do some? Yes. It's individuals like Trump who rape, which is the double whammy, because you know what else is disgusting? Falsely accusing people of rape. They've been doing both all along.
Right.
Yes.
Well, everything with him is projection or confession. This is a quote from John Heilman that we've quoted. Everything with Trump is confession or projection. So look, Pizzagate is real. It's just that Donald Trump owns the pizza parlor. He was talking about himself when he was creating all these conspiracy theories about pedophilic Democrats, and so you're right. They kind of thought they were going to expose the Democrats, and inadvertently, because they use so much projection. But the problem is you can't project your way out of thousands of pages of files, right? You can have a psychological projection, but you can't change the evidence. Although I suspect that those 1,000 FBI agents that are working round the clock are doing a pretty good job of rewriting the history. I mean, I think they're scrubbing the files.
Correct. And this is, well, yes, he has a long history of that. And the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. That's what his felonies were about. We're scrubbing the files in his, cooking the books to cover up the Stormy Daniels stuff, right? So, I mean, this is what he does. And I would predict that he's probably going to come out as a reality TV show star he is and have some sort of exonerating thing. And it's going to be all fake and whatever. So we have to be on this too. Yeah.
I want to take a vote. And then I'm going to hold us all accountable next time you're on the show, Matt. We're all going. Is he going to get away with it? It's a yes or no question. I vote yes.
That he is going to get away with it. I think he's going to get away with it, but he's going to be badly damaged. I don't think he recovers from this completely at all. I think this is going to haunt him.
Okay. What does that look like?
I think that people have been arguing that at some point MAGA is going to dump Trump and then continue on its own. And he's going to be he's going to lose power and credibility. And this lying about Obama and calling this thing a hoax. I mean, even Mike Johnson said this was not a hoax. That Epstein was in jail for real reasons. So I also think we're seeing his dementia and his mental deterioration expressed in the way he's trying to distract us from this event. It's not working. I mean, it really isn't. And now it turns out there's a tape of testimony of Epstein being asked if Trump was involved in these things. And he says, I'm taking the fifth and the fourth. He names all these amendments why he can't answer the question.
Yeah. Right.
I think that he's probably going to get away with it only because, as I said, the best predictor of future behavior is behavior. And so
that's a good
until he actually doesn't get away with something, I'm going to have to put some money on that. But that's part of the radical acceptance. But I've also had this thought lately in terms of, and this gets back to radical acceptance with behavior. I've been thinking, and this is something I really hope your listeners will like sit up straight and listen to. What we have are these media ecosystems. We know this. The right-wingers are not going to hear about this if they're tuning into Fox News. And Fox News had in 2024, 12 of the top most rated TV shows by ratings. So they are dominating and they are not hearing about this. Large swaths of this country. Also, the people who are tuned out the most are on the other side and they're not paying attention. So the people listening are paying attention. So I've been having this theory based on that 3.5% rule that I'm sure you guys have seen this. If we can get 3.5 people in percent of people. And one of the things that she has been saying is she said something about having conversations in the analog world to pierce these bubbles. We have to stop waiting for something to happen and we have to start making it happen. So a little bit of that answer is up to us. And one of the things I've been doing is just, this is a great time to just in the real world say, anybody else paying attention to that Epstein stuff? Well, you don't assume they are.
We do have one advantage in the Foxverse, which is that now he's attacking Rupert Murdoch, right? He's suing the Wall Street Journal because they exposed that letter where he drew a naked lady and said happy birthday to Epstein and said, here's to keeping our secrets.
Right.
Wink, wink, nod, nod. I mean, could be more obvious. And then he's suing the Wall Street Journal. But now what they're doing is the Wall Street Journal is dripping every day, one new piece of evidence. Okay.
Exactly.
So the new piece of evidence today is that Pam Bondi told Donald Trump months ago that he is in the Epstein files. Okay. So that is now in the Wall Street Journal today. That's today's drip. This, Thursday.
Let me just add one more thing to counter both of you in saying that I think Trump will be damaged. Don't forget, he lost on COVID. He lost the trust of the people on COVID. Right. And that's why he lost the election. The question is he going to lose the trust of his base on this one? Right. And they are not letting this go. A Republican congressman told CNN today that the calls were coming in 500 to 1 about Epstein files.
Really? Wow.
I know it's really happening. It's really happening.
That's exciting. That's exciting.
It's very, so I think this, just remember there was at least one time where he did lose, right? Mm-hmm. He does win most of the time. He's very talented. He's a brilliant brander. He's a terrible businessman and he's a corrupt politician and a horrible human being. But boy, can he market and send out messages. Not this time. Correct. And this Obama thing is a joke, and no one's taking it seriously. It's not winning. It doesn't make sense. Right.
And I want to encourage us all, though, to stay on this. Right? Like think of what they could do with Swift boats, emails, and a laptop.
Yeah, you're right.
What can we do with and even criminals don't like pedophilia. What can we do with this one? We have to, I know it's uncomfortable. I know we don't want to talk about it, but we are all going to have to practice talking about it. I'm curious what you think. I've been doing this thing. It's a little devious. I'm ready to come out. It was me, if you want to know. I've been driving by homes that have Trump signs, writing down their address and sending them letters anonymously, saying that I'm very concerned about their support for a pedophile, and I really hope they could clarify for the sake of the safety of the women and children in the neighborhood. And all of the
great idea.
All of the flags have come down. Only on a couple of instances have I had to send them a second one.
That's so interesting. That's so interesting.
I think these media bubbles, I think people are in these media bubbles and dissociating, and we have to find a way to bring this up, because there's another thing that happens for your listeners to know. When somebody is raping children, there are a lot of behaviors that lead up to that. That's the tip of the iceberg.
It's the end point.
In substance use, they call them apparently irrelevant behaviors, right? Like somebody doesn't just cheat on their partner. There's a lot of other little stuff that leads up to it. And so the mindset of someone who is sex trafficking children, we can also bet our sweet Bippy that is not a person who cares about you. Just common sense. We don't have to use any of our clinical terms. People understand what this means. That's why I think when we all have to swing our axes on this tree and all the rest of the trees will follow, we have to repeat, whatever. Oh, and the other one that just is a nice tie-in to this, it was with billionaires.
Mm-hmm.
We have to make the Republican Party wear their support for billionaire pedophiles. And the other thing is, we also have to be proud as Democrats for, I don't know your position on this, but I am proud as Democrats that with Cuomo, we ousted him. We are going to stay consistent, and we are going to be, I don't care if there are Democrats in there. I care about if there are pedophiles in there, get it, find them. And you know what? I also don't, if you are an immigrant and you rape, don't rape. I don't care who you are, what state you are from, what political party you are from. I do not care. Rape is bad. And all of the Republican Party has been elevating a rapist for a freaking decade. They have to own this.
You know, Matt, I think what you're saying is so powerful, and I really applaud your individual efforts to write those letters. You know, if thousands of our listeners could actually, you know, take your advice and copy you, I think that could be a little intervention that could have some power. But I think what you're getting at too is what's so frustrating with the Democrats is they always pull their punches, right? When we were when Russiagate was going on, why weren't we saying from day one, we have a traitor in the White House. We have a traitor in the White House. And just say it as many times as you can move your mouth. That's how many times you should be saying it over and over again. We never even accused him. We never even accused him of being an agent. They would always say things like, "Isn't it curious? Isn't it curious that Donald Trump always seems to do the things that benefit Russia?" I find that curious. Like, stop being curious and start being assertive and saying the guy is a traitor. I think we should be doing the same thing. And by that, I mean our Democratic leaders, as well as you're saying, just individual Joes like you and me, right? When we're talking to our neighbors or our friends. So you're in favor of child rape. You support a child rapist. Is that what you're telling me? That you might start some fights, but the point is let's call a spade, right? Let's not pussyfoot around. Let's all brand him as a child rapist, and let's do it over and over and over.
I've got two jokes. By the way, I was reading the comments section on your most recent one. Somebody called you out for laughing, and I was mad at that person because laughter is an important thing in moments like this. We have to laugh.
Thank you.
Or there's no way this is going down. That is the brain ketchup on this disgusting sandwich. Okay, we need laughter. Got to.
Thank you.
Okay, so here's a joke. I have to admit I pulled these from stuff I saw on the internet. A rapist, an insurrectionist, and a felon walk into a bar, and the bartender says, "What'll it be, Mr. Trump?"
Absolutely.
Nice.
I got another one. I got another one. How many Republicans does it take to screw in a light bulb?
Oh, this is a good
None.
one. I don't
Fox
know.
News tells them Trump did it, and they all stand around in the dark admiring how beautiful and bright it is.
That's a good one.
That's good.
Well, you know, it is about this issue of denying reality. You know, as we know, many people who have suffered sexual abuse, it was denied within their own families.
Yeah.
And the research shows that that's the most damaging thing, the denial of the abuse, right?
It's
and
the
so
second trauma.
That's
the
the
first
second
one
trauma.
is the abuse.
Exactly.
The second one is the denial. And one of the reasons I've been on it, and one of the reasons I know so much about it, is because people behind closed doors, they're filling me in because they're feeling like our country is a family with a raping father. And you could go right through. It looks just like a family, just like a family. You go right through. And the denial that has been going on is so excruciatingly painful and more emotional. And what we know about emotions is if you invalidate them, they get bigger because one of their functions is to communicate. And if everyone is saying, "You're wrong, it didn't happen," that gives that trauma no place to go. And I think a lot of other problems we're seeing in our country is all this emotional stuff coming out sideways. You know, it is unhealthy psychologically for us to have a serial unrepentant rapist he was asked under oath, "Did you do that stuff in Access Hollywood?" And he didn't say no. That's the correct answer. He said something like, powerful people all throughout history have done it. Unfortunately,
Remember that. Or force it.
Permission giving.
Right.
He gave a permission giving belief statement in
Right.
response under oath. That's
Right.
how is that not confession?
And you mentioned secondary trauma.
If Trump is the father who's committing the rape the family can't acknowledge, then it's Uncle Jeffrey who's really doing it, I guess, right? Gets displaced onto Jeffrey Epstein as the villain, and that all the cover-up, because in sexual abuse within a family, there's always a cover-up, or often a cover-up. So it's being displaced outside of the family.
100%. The first person who gets the wrath is not the person who abuses. It's the other people for not protecting them. All of this anger in our society is coming out sideways. It's all spilling out all over the place. Yes.
You know, Matt, when I was in training in the late 80s at the University of Michigan, our clinic was one of the first to have psychotherapy groups for sexually abused women. And it was run by one of our faculty members, a woman in her 40s, late 40s, and an intern, probably in her 25. And this had never been done before. This was when it was starting to happen across the country. It's before DBT. And what they discovered about 4 months in is that there was tremendous negative transference towards the older faculty member as the mother who didn't protect them. And by being able to play that out and talk about it, it led to tremendous growth for everyone in the group. So you're so right. The rage at not being protected is the second trauma.
Yep.
And I think what we're seeing here is the second trauma is writ large. And I know you agree with me on this. We talked about it last time we were here, but I feel like every time we talk about this topic, I really want to get this point in, which is there are literally millions of sexual abuse victims who are being re-traumatized by the publicity of his sexual abuse and his seeming impunity. So I think that we talk about, the second trauma in one family. If you think of the entire country as a family, what percentage of our country has been sexually abused? I mean, I don't know if we have reliable statistics, but it's millions of people, right? And these people are being re-traumatized.
Yeah, 15 to 30% in the studies I've seen, depending on the methodology. Yeah, it's 7 to 15% for men and 15 to 30% ish for women, and that's who say that they did it, right? Or say that it happened to them. It's a huge percentage of people. But I do also want to, because I'm dialectical here, say that there's also a thing that is very hopeful about this, that post-traumatic growth is also a thing. It is true. It doesn't kill you, makes you stronger. And I do have hope that we can come out of this, the other side, but we have to accept this. Not acceptance is not approving. I think this is a point I said last time. I gave the example of, my mother-in-law who doesn't accept the reality of hurricanes on the coast of one of the Carolinas. And then I want her to acknowledge that the hurricanes are real. I don't want her to like hurricanes, and I don't want her to do nothing about hurricanes, just that there is the potential for a hurricane to kill her and come stay with us once in a while. We have to stop pretending like this isn't happening right under our noses. This is happening. And when there's all this unnamed stuff, which is going to be unnamed in families, because, I actually learned I had to stop marketing myself as a trauma therapist, because I actually found so many people who have the most trauma are so avoidant of their own trauma for understandable reasons. And when I actually marketed myself as being more suicidality, self-harm, post-traumatic stress, I actually got a lot more cases of people who were traumatized. So we all have to accept this reality. Non-acceptance of the reality is the path to post-traumatic stress. And acceptance of the reality is post-traumatic growth. Oh, yep. Sorry.
Now, I want to give a theory that relates to what you're saying. That if there is this psychological tendency to blame the non-protector even more than the abuser sometimes. I think one of the reasons that the Democrats are so in the toilet as far as people's approval of them. It isn't because they went too far left. It isn't because they don't care about the working man, or they don't have good economic policies. I think it's because they were weak in protecting us from
100.
this abuser. They didn't protect us from him. They didn't prosecute him. They didn't expose him. They didn't really fully denounce him. Okay. And so the Democrats are the mother that didn't protect us from the abuser. And we're mad at them. We're mad at them for being so weak and putting us in this position. I'm mad at them.
Correct.
I'm going to dissociate in a minute, or I'm going to explode. I don't know which, but I'm mad.
Agreed. And once you acknowledge the reality of this, of his chronic sexual predation of minors, all of the heat he has gotten is justified and then some. In fact, I saw something on CNN just today that said there is no evidence of Epstein, that there is a connection to Epstein. Like, give a paragraph of evidence, including that he has been adjudicated for sexual abuse. What do you mean there's no evidence? Man.
Well, you know, we're running out of time, and Harry may have another. But listen, you know, I'm glad that we've had one angry man on here today, because if we don't get angry about this, right, then we're kind of lost, and we have failed the people that we're supposed to be helping and protecting.
If we don't get angry, we're colluding.
Yes, anger is a stage of grief. Anger is what we feel when something we want is blocked. We don't want this. We are angry. We reject this filth.
Matt, I want to add just one thing for our audience, because you're such a great educator. But you know, the three of us are pros, and I actually did research. My dissertation was on borderline cognition, and I had worked in a clinic with a lot of sexually abused people. So it's something that at least I got my hands dirty and really working on it. But I think it's important to remember, the audience to understand, that trauma happens when the mind experiences something so horrible, so overwhelming, that the mind cannot integrate or contain it. So instead, it builds a wall of a quarantine around it. So the mind can't fully associate to it, can't fully integrate it. So even if you know it happened to you, you can't fully work it through, and it remains there, creating terrible havoc for the person in PTSD symptoms and suffering and repeating of abusive relationship patterns and all of that. And the treatment, it seems to me, across modalities, is that you tell the story over and over again until it wears down the quarantine and the walls, until it becomes a memory that can be metabolized. Doesn't take it away, but it no longer controls you.
Yes.
And when we have someone like Trump, a leader, saying, you know, I did it, but I didn't do it, and who cares? And I'm fine, and everything's fine. It's reinforcing the traumatic defenses, and making everybody worse.
And I'll say one thing, and I realize we have so many things to say. Similarly, all trauma, you go there and come back. You need two sets of skills. So we are going there. We just went there and we stayed there for a while. You can also come out, tune it out, go for a walk, listen to the birds, hug a friend.
Yes.
You are still breathing. It is not happening now. You have three people here who love the heck out of you, if you are listening and that has ever happened to you. And even just being a human and watching this, it does shake. It's shaken my faith in my country and in humanity watching all this. But just being with you all, thank you for doing what you're doing. And I'll shut up.
Well, that's good advice for people to learn to also be able to calm down and re-regulate. And in the meantime, guys, just we're kicking ass and taking addresses, and we're sending nasty letters to people with Trump signs, telling them that they are pro-child rape, and that's how the people in their community will be regarding them from here on in.
Maybe they might be. We just don't know. That's how I raise it.
What can we do? What can we do? That's a creative idea.
But my second letter is now you know.
Matt, thanks so much.
Yeah,
Matt, great to have you.
Thanks so much. It was great to have you. See you next time. Bye-bye. Well,
wow, what an interview!
yeah, I mean, he really has a deep heart for this issue, and it wakes us up about the profound significance of it,
and tremendous skills and the ability to really explain. He's really,
yeah.
I think he's got the whole thing. He's the whole package.
He's doing DBT on the nation here, tricking Trump.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness.
So, John, what time is it?
Well, I guess it's shrink wrap time, Harry. What did we learn this week?
Well, I think because of our wonderful guest, we have a new way of thinking about who Trump is and what our country is doing. And to summarize, Matt talked about how there's consequences to our country for having a president who has been adjudicated for rape, who has been involved, has been accused by many, many women, including underage women from his teen pageants that he had, and his involvement with a known sex trafficker and sociopath named Jeffrey Epstein, who Trump is lying about having spent many years being friends with him. And Matt really talked to us about how this is reverberating in the psyche of Americans, men and women who've experienced sexual abuse and assault in this country, the numbers of which are way higher than people realize.
Yeah.
And that there is a sense that we are all defending against the anxiety that Donald Trump, his history, and now this Epstein thing, which I believe is going to damage him, is bringing about. So I think there is a war between reality and hypocrisy, between democracy and an attempt to pull off a coup. We're watching it happen. And we're watching Donald Trump struggle more and more with his increasing incapacity to think clearly, to self-regulate, to be able to answer questions, and not to lie in such a way that even his base isn't believing it. Even his base. So I think these are very difficult times. One last thing I'll say. Therapists, I know, I'm experiencing it. I know you have. I have patients who come in every week rattled by what's going on. Troubled by it, scared of it, including Republicans who come in saying,
"Of course,
what is going on here?" And so my feeling is we have to keep being strong. We have to face reality, and as Matt said, and we also have to love our friends, our family, our significant others, whoever, and remember that being alive is the most wonderful gift.
Yeah, I mean, I see kind of a mixed glass, half empty, half full, and again, part of it is that we don't know exactly how it's going to turn out. But on one hand, I'm very encouraged that finally, there is actually something that can shock the conscience of Americans. And you point out how many people have been sexually abused. That's probably part of some of the energy behind this, right? A lot of these people who were demanding accountability, they've been there. Okay, it's not theoretical for them, right? It's visceral, it's traumatic. And lots of people's traumas are being reactivated by this subject. Matt was even sensitive to the fact that people listening to our show, listening to what he was saying, might be traumatized while he was speaking, because he's an expert who works with patients who've been abused, and even was saying to them, look, if you're being triggered by what we're talking about, stand up, walk around, meditate. He was being very attentive to the needs of the audience, but sensitive to the fact that many people may be wounded, may be hurt. And so that is erupting, and it does seem to keep erupting in ways that as they try to tamp it down, then it pops up again in the Wall Street Journal or what have you. On the other hand, I'm really alarmed by the cover-up, the massive cover-up that's taking place in plain sight, with no one stopping it. basically. So that we've talked about how there are these races or these opposing forces. I'm not sure exactly how it's going to turn out, but I fear that he is going to get away with it. That the Wall Street Journal will keep dropping stories and he'll keep suing the Wall Street Journal. And now the Wall Street Journal will become evil, a part of the evil empire, blah, blah, blah. But I'm not sure anything's going to come of it. That's my fear, but I don't see the future. I don't know.
Look, I'm going to state the obvious, and I state it every week. Yeah. The 26 midterm elections could not be more important.
Of course.
That's the only way to stop him, is to take back at least one house of Congress. At least one.
And I think it's really significant, and people really need to understand the deep, deep rot behind the decision to fire Colbert, which in and of itself is chilling, but it's so much worse than that. We have Larry Ellison, a major MAGA supporter, essentially buying CBS, just the way Elon Musk bought Twitter. And so we're losing another media outlet to MAGA. And there's going to be consequences. I really believe that these things collectively contribute to the conservatives' ability to make, as once you say, there's Earth 1 and Earth 2, and Earth 2 was the alternative universe. Well, more and more it's starting to feel like Earth 2 is really the real Earth. And those of us who are from Earth 1 are going, huh?
Yeah, but the base is, this MAGA base is very interesting. We have to watch it. This may split things. And as I said with our guest, Trump did lose the country over COVID. Mm-hmm. He's capable of losing momentum. And, one thing we know about him is he's running scared right now because he's lost momentum. He doesn't have, in chess, there's a term called tempo. Tempo means that the other player is constantly reacting to what you're doing. If you create tempo, you can take the game to checkmate, right? Trump is a genius at creating tempo in the media. So he's always dominating the headlines and he's always distracting and bringing up something else. He's frantically trying to regain tempo. He keeps losing it every day.
Well, look, I mean, his uncle, Dr. John Trump, was one of the smartest professors at MIT. They used to keep him in a Sherman tank because that was before they had the think tanks.
It'd be harder for him to maintain tempo if he's disorganized like that.
Exactly. So yes, there is some source of hopium, but there's also some dire developments, and Trump is still demented after all these years and getting worse.
Hear, hear.
Yes, it's here.
Hey, John, I talk a lot about Pam Bondi in disparaging terms, and kind of like little Mikey Johnson. I find her so despicable. But I had some sympathy for her this week because she's in a rather impossible position, right? The MAGA base had believed her when she said that she had the client list of Jeffrey Epstein. She said it on Fox News. But now that the administration is moving forward and they've discovered that Trump is all over those files, now she has to say no to the base to protect Trump. And it's really, she's in an impossible position, isn't she?
Yeah. It's an impossible mission. It's an impossible MAGA mission. You could think of it as a mission impossible.
And in fact, she's been given a mission impossible mission, right? And it turns out, not only was she given this mission by audio file, but Pete Hegseth actually accidentally posted it to Signal, and because you and I are still on his list, we actually snagged it. So, folks, here is the mission that was given to Pam Bondi just the other day.
Your mission, Pam, should you decide to accept it. will be to cover up President Trump's deep involvement with Jeffrey Epstein, child rape, and sex trafficking. To accomplish this mission, you will need to obtain the FBI Epstein files, scour through million pages for weeks, around the clock, and delete any references to Trump. Inside your briefcase, you will find 20 bottles of whiteout and some ketamine to help you dissociate from the lurid details you'll be exposed to. Next, you must continue to exert leverage over Mikey Johnson with his Covenant Eyes history, the app he shares with his son. Besides Christian porn, he's recently gotten into Muslim MILFs. Finally, after insisting on a private meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell, threaten to use those AI images of her having sex with Hillary Clinton and say, you're concerned she might, quote, commit suicide in jail, and that should do the trick. As usual, if you are caught or killed, Doge will deny any knowledge of your actions, and the president will say he hardly knew you. Good luck, Pam. This tape will self-destruct in 5 seconds. Well, she's been given her marching orders. And I don't know about you, Harry, but I feel like this is one of those days I'm glad that I have my MAGA Bondi action figure.
Oh, boy.
Boom, 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 doodoo, 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 boom, 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 boom.
Hey, John.
Boom, boom, boom.
Don't stop taking your Klonopin.
Ta-da!
In fact, take more. Thanks, folks. Have a great week. We'll see you next time here on Shrinking Trump.
Bye-bye.
Bye.